Okay, just a little bit of an update on how this table is going. I've managed to just move this out of the way, sorry. Managed to get my board. I put a spacer under here to bring this the same level as the table so that it will be flat here. And I've only just nailed it onto this bench. This is only a temporary table, so the whole idea of this is to be able to pull it apart and pack it away. And then once I get a shed or whatever, if I want to make something permanent, I can make something permanent. But this is actually a pretty good idea, because if I'm using countersunk screws, I can undo this and pack it away and then bring it back out and use it again. This makes it kind of portable, transportable. Anyways, that's the idea of what I'm doing to cut long lengths of timber with a cheap, simple little docking saw like this. It's very hard to cut long lengths of timber to the size. You have to measure every size with this. I've now fixed this, what I call this fence, onto my table. Made sure it's the same level as the actual saw itself. So that's one side, and I'll make another one on the other side. But that gives you the idea. This table has now got this fence fixed. I can extend this out further. I'll have to make legs to support, obviously, and this is just a temporary thing for now. Good enough for home use. And that's the support to keep the table up level so that my work is not dropping and falling everywhere. It might be a bit high. I did cut it a little bit longer to start with. Always cut longer so we can cut down to size. So I've made an exception of making this a little bit taller than I needed to start with, because it's nothing worse than having something cut short first. If it's cut longer, I can always cut it down to size. So this is not fixed or anything at the moment. This is just to get my work, just to work things out. Once I've done this, I can make this like a template. Anyway, so that's the idea. So the whole idea of that then is with one of these clamps and one of these. So let's say I wanted to cut something to size. I would put this to the size I want. I would clamp this on, and my first, if I'm doing bulk lengths, bulk material, and I want to say, you know, multiple pieces of timber the same length, I would measure the distance here first. I would normally mark here so I can get the right length, and bring my saw without cutting it down, make sure it's right. Cut one piece, measure it. Once it measured, then if it's not quite the right length, all I need to do is move my stopper there back longer, or tap it a bit shorter until I've got exactly the right length I want. And then what I can do, I can cut multiple pieces of timber exactly the same length as my original without having to measure each piece. As a rule of thumb, what I would do if I was cutting a lot of them, if I was cutting 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, whatever, every 10, 20 pieces, just on to be safe side, I would measure, make sure that nothing's moved, because there's nothing worse than cutting 100 and finding out that every time you bring this timber against your stock here, this could slowly, as you're knocking it, you could slowly move it. So the idea is to measure them constantly. Now, another good tip with this is once you've got this stopper dead right and you want to keep a check, and you haven't got time to keep measuring things all the time, get your pencil, pen, whatever, marker. Bearing in mind you're going to have lots and lots of marks, but that's why it's pencil advisable. Once you've got your stopper to the right spot, I would draw a line there, and as you're cutting timber, if you notice, you'll be able to see if this stopper's moving or this not matching up with the line anymore. So like I'm saying, it'd be tapping, and you'll find that it's going like that, so you know, oh, it's moved, it can't. So that's another way of keeping a check on your work as you're going along without measuring each piece. I would still, however, check the lengths of my cuts, my pieces, on an average probably 10-20. After 10-20 pieces, and if you're confident it's not moving, you could gradually, increase to 25, 30, 40, 50. But I would never cut more than, myself personally, I would never cut any more than 100 at a time if I'm doing bulk length cuts without checking. The more you check, the more time you got taking to check. So back on to me. The rule of thumb is, like my father always told me, measure, remeasure, remeasure, always measure 2-3 times, cut, measure again, measure, measure, measure. Make sure your measurements are always right. Once things are cut, and you continue to cut, so you don't just go measure one, cut, and then cut everything else the same length. Measure, cut, measure, cut, measure. 2-3 times. When you're sure, you can go at it. Anyway, that's another tip, and I'm going to finish making my temporary docking bench. Catch you later.